The day my brother was convicted, the bank foreclosed on our family home. I stood on the sidewalk, my chest tight with loss, watching them move our things. My parents thought we'd lost everything. They didn't know I was the anonymous bidder who bought the house at auction. My name is Willa, I'm 26, and I was sitting in the nosebleed section of the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, watching my life get torn apart and rebuilt on live television. Down on the stage, bathed in spotlights, the legendary producer Deacon Jones was supposed to be giving my father, country music icon Brooks Monroe, a Lifetime Achievement Award. But he went dangerously off script. "Before I give this to my old friend Brooks," Deacon said, his gravelly voice echoing through the massive arena, "I need to speak a truth that Nashville has ignored for too long. About the real author of his first #1 hit. And about the song that just won Song of the Year for his talented daughter, Blakely." The broadcast camera cut to my sister, Blakely, smiling her perfect, camera-ready smile in the front row. It cut to my father, his own smile tightening at the edges. Deacon's voice dropped, full of conviction. "The truth is, both of those songs were written by one person. The daughter they've kept hidden in the writing rooms and the shadows." "Willa, could you please stand up?" My heart stopped. This wasn't just a family drama. This was one of those surreal family revenge stories playing out in front of millions. To understand the deafening silence that fell over that arena, to understand why a legend would risk his career to tell my story, you have to understand the beautiful, gilded lie my family had been living for 2 generations, and you have to understand the song that finally broke me. If you've ever been the one whose name was never mentioned, whose contribution was quietly erased, just type the name of the city you're watching from. I want to see where all the silent voices are tonight. In Nashville, family dynasties are everything. And the Monroes were royalty. My father, Brooks Monroe, was a living legend. His heartfelt songs about heartbreak and cheap whiskey had defined a generation of country music. He was the ruggedly handsome poet of the common man, an image my mother, his shrewd and formidable manager, had meticulously crafted and protected for 40 years. My older sister, Blakely, was the heir apparent. She had the look, the flowing blonde hair, the sparkling blue eyes, the million-dollar smile that lit up any room she entered. She was groomed for stardom from birth, a perfect blend of our father's public charm and our mother's ruthless ambition. She could hold a tune, yes, but her real talent was performing. She could sell a song, make an audience of thousands believe she had lived every painful word, even if she hadn't. And then there was me, the ghost. The secret engine running under the hood of the Monroe family machine. I didn't have Blakely's camera-ready beauty or my father's stage presence. I had something they both desperately needed but could never quite master on their own. The words. I could bleed onto a page, turn a painful memory or a fleeting observation into a 3-minute story that felt universal. I was the source of the raw authenticity they sold to the world. They were the stars, bathed in the warm glow of the spotlight. I was the songwriter, alone in a dimly lit room with a guitar and a notebook, writing their lives and their lies into existence. It was our family's unspoken arrangement, the foundation of our entire empire. I feel like every family, every business has this dynamic, the one who feels it and the one who performs it. Type songwriter if you are the one who wrote the story, or type star if you are the one born to tell it. I'm fascinated to see the roles you've all played. For years, I wrote songs for them based on observation or imagination. I could craft a believable, chart-topping breakup song without ever having my own heart truly broken. But last year, that changed. I went through a devastating split with a man I genuinely thought I was going to marry. The grief was suffocating, a physical weight in my chest, and the only way I knew how to process it was to write. The result was a song I called Faded Photograph. It wasn't an assignment, it wasn't for the Monroe family brand. It was a confession, written in tears at 3 a.m. on the worn-out rug of my small Nashville apartment. It was raw, specific, and painfully honest, filled with little, intimate details only I would know: the chipped coffee mug he left behind, the scent of his cologne on a jacket I couldn't throw away. It was my heart, distilled into 3 verses and a chorus. I recorded a simple, shaky acoustic demo on my phone and saved it, thinking it would forever be my own private message in a bottle. But my mother, the manager, has a way of finding things. During one of her rare visits, she must have heard me humming the melody. A week later, she called a family business meeting. She sat me down with my father and Blakely and told me she'd heard the song. "It's a masterpiece, Willa," she said, her manager's eyes gleaming with dollar signs. But then came the twist. "It's too raw for you, too personal. You're not a performer." But Blakely can take this song and make it an anthem for millions. This is what's best for the family, for the brand. I tried to refuse, to explain that this one was different, that it was mine. But they wore me down, a united front of persuasion and pressure, promising this was the last time, that this one massive hit would secure Blakely's career and finally give me the freedom to work on my own material. I reluctantly agreed, feeling like I was handing over a piece of my soul for them to sell to the highest bidder. Handing over the song was one thing. Watching them dissect it and repackage it was another level of hell. I had to sit in the recording booth at the legendary RCA Studio A, silent, as my father coached Blakely on how to sing my pain. "More vulnerability in the second verse, honey," he'd say through the intercom. "I need you to really think about how it feels to lose everything." I would just sit there, clenching my fists until my knuckles were white, thinking, I don't have to think about it. I'm living it. Blakely, to her credit, is a great mimic. She channeled my authentic heartache into a polished, radio-friendly performance that soared up the charts and became an anthem for the heartbroken. The night of the awards show was the final turn of the screw. I watched on a monitor from a backstage dressing room as Blakely walked the red carpet, a vision in a glittering, custom-made gown. "This song is just so deeply personal," she told an interviewer from Entertainment Tonight, a perfectly rehearsed tear glistening in her eye. "It really came from a place of real, profound loss." I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. But the worst part was the performance. As she stood on that massive stage, under the glare of 1,000 lights, she sang my words. She sang about the chipped coffee mug. She sang about the scent on the jacket. And the broadcast camera panned across the arena, showing thousands of teary-eyed fans holding up their phones like candles, all of them connecting with my story, but seeing her face. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life, completely invisible, while the world applauded my sister for breaking a heart she never even had. It was the loneliest moment of my entire life. It's a unique kind of pain, having your truth told by someone else's voice. If you've ever had your story misunderstood, or worse, stolen, just type the word truth in the comments. It's time our own stories were finally heard. The moment the final note of Faded Photograph faded from the arena speakers, the backstage area erupted in celebration. Blakely walked off stage, clutching the heavy, gold Song of the Year trophy, and straight into our parents' tearful, triumphant embrace. "You were magnificent," my mother cried, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. "A true star." My father waited, a long, vintage guitar case held in his hands. "We have something for you, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He unlatched the case to reveal a breathtaking 1958 Gibson J200, its sunburst maple wood gleaming under the harsh backstage lights. It was the same iconic model his own hero had played. "To commemorate the night our little girl became a legend in her own right," he said, his voice beaming with pride as he handed her the priceless instrument. Blakely gasped, running her hands over the guitar with reverence. It was an iconic, incredibly valuable gift, a passing of the torch from one star to another. Everyone crowded around, admiring it, celebrating Blakely, celebrating the Monroe dynasty. I stood off to the side, a forgotten ghost in the corner of their victory party. It was a full 10 minutes later that my mother, in a moment of apparent afterthought, seemed to notice I was there. "Oh, Willa," she exclaimed, her voice a little too loud. "We have a little something for you, too, for all your hard work helping Blakely with the song." She reached into her expensive handbag and pulled out a small, generic gift card sleeve. She pressed it into my hand with a tight smile. "Here you go, honey." I looked down at the card. It was a $50 gift certificate to Guitar Center. $50. For the Song of the Year. For the piece of my soul that had just secured their legacy for another generation. They hadn't just overlooked me, they had assigned my contribution a price tag, and that price was a profound insult. I just nodded, tucked the card into my pocket, and felt something inside me finally go cold and quiet. I couldn't stay there a second longer. I needed to escape the noise, the fake smiles, the suffocating weight of my own invisibility. With the cheap gift card feeling like a lead weight in my pocket, I started to slip out a side exit that led to a quiet service corridor, hoping no one would notice my retreat. "Not so fast, kid." The voice was like gravel and aged whiskey, and it stopped me in my tracks. I turned to see Deacon Jones leaning against the concrete wall, his wise, tired eyes watching me with an intensity that made me feel, for the first time all night, truly seen. He had a half-empty glass of bourbon in his hand and an unreadable expression on his face. He nodded back towards the chaotic celebration surrounding Blakely's new guitar. "That was a hell of a thing to watch," he said, his voice low. "The song, I mean, and all this." I just shrugged, unable to find my voice. What was there to say? He already knew. He took a slow sip of his drink. "I've been in this town for 50 years, Willa. I know a hit song when I hear it, and I know a true songwriter when I see one. A real one. The kind that has to bleed on the page because there's no other way to get the poison out." He looked me straight in the eye. "That $50 gift card is the biggest insult I've seen at an awards show since Kanye interrupted Taylor Swift." A small, sad smile touched my lips. He pushed himself off the wall and came a step closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Don't you let them break you. The truth has a way of finding the right key, kid. It always does. You just be ready to sing when your moment comes." He gave me a slight, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and disappeared back into the throng of people. I stood there for a long moment in the quiet hallway, his words echoing in my ears. I didn't know what he meant, not exactly. But it was the first time all night that someone had acknowledged my truth. It was a lifeline, and I held on to it like a drowning woman. I went back to my seat in the upper balcony, Deacon's words replaying in my mind, a tiny ember of warmth in my frozen-over heart. I thought he meant someday in the distant future, a quiet opportunity that might arise. I had no idea his moment would be just an hour later, broadcast live to millions of people during the show's biggest segment, my father's Lifetime Achievement Award presentation. Deacon walked onto the main stage to present the award and began his speech just as everyone expected, sharing warm, funny anecdotes about his 40-year friendship with my father. My family, seated in the front row, preened under the praise, soaking in the adoration. Then, Deacon paused, looking away from the teleprompter, his expression turning deadly serious. "But the story of Brooks Monroe, the legend," he said, his voice dropping to a confidential hush that somehow commanded more attention than a shout, "is built on a foundation of brilliant women whose voices we never got to hear." A confused murmur rippled through the audience. My father's smile faltered. His first #1 hit, "Empty Glass, Full Heart," the song that launched his career. His wife wrote every word of that before she gave up her own dreams to become his manager. My mother froze, her face a mask of pure shock. "And tonight," Deacon continued, his voice rising with righteous power, "we awarded Song of the Year to his daughter, Blakely, for Faded Photograph. A masterpiece. But she didn't write it either. The real songwriter, the one who actually lived that heartbreak, is his other daughter." He scanned the cavernous arena, his eyes finding mine even in the cheap seats. "Willa Monroe, would you please stand up?" The spotlight operator, reacting on instinct, swung a massive beam of light up towards me. Suddenly, I was blinded, every eye in the music industry on me. My family stared up in absolute horror. It takes a special kind of courage to speak your truth when the whole world is watching. If you've ever had to stand up and fight for your own story, this space is for you. Subscribe and join a community that believes in the power of one true voice. The moment the spotlight hit me, the broadcast director must have screamed into his headset because the live feed immediately cut to a frantic, unscheduled commercial break. The arena erupted into chaos. I just stood there, frozen. As security guards rushed towards me, not to remove me, but to escort me through a sudden crush of reporters who had materialized in the aisle, all shouting my name. They led me to a private backstage lounge where Deacon was waiting, looking completely unflustered as he calmly sipped his bourbon. Seconds later, the door burst open and my family stormed in, their faces contorted with a mixture of fury and pure panic. "What in God's name have you done?" My father roared at Deacon, his legendary charm gone, replaced by the ugly face of rage. "You've ruined us. You've ruined everything." My mother was on her phone, frantically trying to do damage control with their publicist, while Blakely just stood by the door, white-faced and trembling, staring at me as if I were a complete stranger. But while they were screaming, the second phase of Deacon's plan was already in motion. As the chaos unfolded in our room, someone from his team, an anonymous source, leaked my original demo of Faded Photograph to a popular Nashville music blogger. It was the raw, acoustic version I'd recorded on my phone at 3 a.m., my voice cracking with real, unpolished emotion. The link hit X, formerly known as Twitter, and within minutes, it was a firestorm. The hashtags number Willa Monroe and number stolen song started trending nationwide. People were comparing my raw, heartbreaking version to Blakely's polished, perfect one. The court of public opinion was now in session, and my simple, honest demo was Exhibit A. The truth, as Deacon had promised, was finding its voice, and it was singing louder than any of their carefully constructed lies. The ride home from the arena was the longest, most silent car ride of my life. The air in the luxury SUV was thick with unspoken accusations and the vibrating hum of our phones blowing up with notifications. But the silence was just the calm before the inevitable storm that erupted the moment the front door of our Nashville mansion closed behind us. "How could you do this to our family?" my mother shrieked, her carefully composed mask finally crumbling to reveal the raw fury beneath. "After everything we've given you." "Given me?" I shot back, the dam of my lifelong silence finally breaking. "You gave Blakely a career built on my heartbreak, and you gave me a $50 gift card as a thank you. That's what you've given me." The argument raged for an hour, a toxic mix of my parents' denials and my long-suppressed truths. But finally, I turned to the one person who had been silent the whole time, my sister, who was huddled on the couch, staring into space. "Just tell me one thing, Blakely," I said, my voice quiet now, which was somehow more cutting. "When you were on that stage, singing my words, did you feel anything at all? Or was it just another performance?" That's when she finally broke. Sobs racked her body, the ugly, gasping kind that couldn't be faked for a camera. "I'm sorry," she whispered through tears. "You don't understand the pressure. Dad said my own songs weren't good enough, that I needed yours to be a real star. I hated it, Willa. I hated lying. But I was too scared to say no to him." It wasn't a full excuse. It wasn't a magic fix. But it was the first honest thing she had said to me in years. She wasn't just the villain in my story, she was a different kind of victim in theirs. The polished star was just a girl who was terrified of disappointing her father. Family is complicated, isn't it? A tangled mess of love, jealousy, and unspoken rules. The world may never know what you've been through. But we do. Subscribe if you know that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is the one you understand the most. The morning after the fight, the house felt like a war zone, heavy with the toxic fallout of decades of lies. I knew I couldn't heal in the same place where I had been wounded. I was packing a small bag, with no real destination in mind, when my phone rang. It was Deacon. "Meet me at 706 Union Avenue in an hour," he said in his gravelly voice, and hung up before I could ask any questions. Every songwriter in the world knew that address. It was Sun Studio in Memphis, just a 3-hour drive from Nashville. The birthplace of rock and roll, the hallowed ground where legends like Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash had made their first recordings. When I arrived, Deacon was waiting for me outside, the studio keys in his hand. He led me into the quiet, empty recording room, the air thick with the ghosts of music history. "Look around, kid," he said, his voice soft but resonant in the famous room. "This place isn't about fancy production or perfect looks. This room is about one thing: truth. It's about a person standing in front of a single microphone with nothing but a guitar and a story that demands to be told. Your father and sister, they forgot that. They got lost in the business of manufacturing stars. They forgot that stars burn out, but a true song lasts forever." He pointed to the vintage microphone in the center of the room. "The world has heard your demo," he said. "They've heard the raw pain. Now, they need to hear your strength. They need to hear the rest of your story, told in your own voice, on your own terms. The studio is yours for as long as you need it. I've already called in the best session musicians in Tennessee. It's time to stop writing for them and start recording for you." In the sacred quiet of that legendary room, I finally felt like I was home. The next few weeks at Sun's studio were a blur of pure creation. For the first time in my life, I was writing and singing without a filter, without considering the Monroe brand or what would be commercial enough for Blakely's voice. The songs that poured out of me weren't just about my family's betrayal. They were about finding my own strength, about the ache of being invisible, and about the quiet hope of finally being seen. Deacon was a brilliant producer, a master at his craft, pushing me to be more honest, more raw, more me. My voice, once just a guide for my sister, was finally telling its own story. One rainy afternoon, as I was working on the harmony arrangement for a new, defiant song about breaking free, the heavy studio door creaked open. It was Blakely. She stood there awkwardly, looking smaller and more uncertain than I had ever seen her. She wasn't dressed for the cameras, just simple jeans and a t-shirt, her famous blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "That sounds beautiful," she said, her voice quiet, almost hesitant. I tensed, my hand hovering over the mixing board, unsure of her motives. "What are you doing here, Blakely?" I wanted to apologize," she said, twisting the hem of her shirt. "Properly. Without Mom and Dad there. What I did, letting them use your pain for my career. It was wrong. There's no excuse." She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. "You're the real talent, Willa. You always have been. I was just the one who was better at smiling for the cameras." Then she did something that shocked me to my core. "I was listening to the harmony you're working on," she said, nodding toward the speakers. "The high harmony. It's tricky. I was wondering, if you'd let me, I could sing backup for you on this track. Just backup. Where I belong." She was offering to step out of the spotlight and into the supporting role, a complete reversal of our entire lives. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. It was the first note in a new, more honest harmony. My debut album, which I titled Ghost Notes, came out 6 months later. It didn't sell millions of copies like Blakely's polished pop country records, but it did something more important. It received critical acclaim for its raw honesty and lyrical depth. It was respected. It was real. It was mine. Blakely did sing the high harmony on that one track, her famous voice blending with mine in a way that was both haunting and beautiful, a symbol of our fragile, evolving peace. This whole journey taught me that the most powerful family revenge stories aren't about destruction, they're about reconstruction. It's about taking the broken pieces of your past and building something true and unshakable. My family was obsessed with maintaining a legacy, a brand built on carefully constructed images. But a true legacy isn't something you inherit or perform. It's something you build with integrity, one honest note at a time. And that's the lesson I want to leave with you. Your voice, your story, your truth, that is the most valuable thing you will ever own. Don't ever let anyone else sing it for you. The greatest revenge is not tearing someone else's world down, but building your own world up so strong that their shadows can no longer reach you. To honor that, I used the advance from my record deal to start my own small label, Unwritten Records, dedicated to finding and promoting the ghostwriters, the unseen talents, the ones with true stories to tell. It's my real legacy. It's the hit that I was always meant to write. If you believe in the power of owning your own story, of transforming your deepest pain into your greatest purpose, then this channel is your home. Hit that subscribe button and join us. Because the world doesn't need another star, it needs your true, unfiltered, and unapologetic voice.